Empress Silithra's primary mandibles parted in a sharp command, her voice resonating through the vaulted chamber like the hum of a warship's core. The fleet's hyperlane relays falter without those alloy shipments. Vorun, your projections, speak them plain, or hold your peace. Her compound eyes fixed on her chief advisor, antennae quivering with restrained impatience as the council holograms flickered, red alerts pulsing over depleted supply lines snaking across Dominion space. Vorun rose, his iridescent carapace gleaming under the throne room's bioluminescent orbs, 6 limbs folding in ritual deference before unfolding to gesture at the projections. Majesty, the shortfall cripples 3 sectors. The Krell Concordance withholds their forges unless we yield on the outer rim tariffs. And now, his secondary jaws clicked ominously. The treaty councils convene virtually. They invoke the pact of Terra's ancient clause. The human, Merrick Hale, must be elevated to honored guest at court. His blood saved you once. As princess, they demand his place here, or their freighters turn silent. A murmur rippled through the assembled nobles, Lord Catherine's crest flaring aggressively from his perch among the traditionalists. Silithra felt the weight of their stares, her divine lineage etched in the ritual scars along her thorax, a reminder of the ceremonial divinity that bound her rule. She had commanded fleets to victory, her will as unyielding as Var Chiton, yet this human debt gnawed like a persistent larva. Publicly, she dismissed them as fragile softskins, their short lives a curiosity at best. Privately, the memory lingered, his blood, warm and vital, pulsing into her veins amid the wreckage of that skirmish years ago. But duty demanded distance. The pact secures our flanks against the Hive War's echoes, she said, her tone broking no dissent. We honor the clause minimally. He enters as guest, no more. Protocol holds. The chamber doors ground open hours later, admitting the human shuttle under heavy escort. Silithra observed from the elevated dais of the grand atrium, her guards arrayed in phalanxes of polished exoskeletons, plasma lances humming at the ready. Merrick Hale stepped forth alone, unarmored, his frame compact yet steady, in a simple tunic of neutral gray. Human practicality, she noted with detached appraisal. No entourage, no ostentation. His eyes, a piercing blue under dark hair, scanned the vast hall without flinching, taking in the towering spires of crystal-veined stone and the subtle pheromone trails marking noble territories. Chaos erupted without warning. 2 perimeter guards, young and hot-crested from the Purity faction, clashed over precedence in the reception line. One's lance grazing the other's forelimb in a spark of aggression. Mandibles snapped, pheromones spiked with fury, and the scuffle swelled as comrades surged forward, lances crossing in a tangle of limbs and snarls. Intruder protocol, one bellowed, their focus locking on the human as if his mere presence ignited the fray. Silithra tensed, her claws gripping the dais edge. A full brawl here, before the treaty feeds? Disaster. She rose to signal intervention. But Marek moved first, swift, unhurried. He slipped between the thrashing guards like water through chitin cracks, palms open and low. Easy, he murmured, voice calm amid the din, positioning himself at the larger guard's flank. His fingers found pressure points with practiced precision. Not strikes, but holds, honed from field medic's grim arts. One hand pressed the juncture of mandible and thorax, the other locked a joint at the midlimb, twisting just enough to disrupt the nerve cluster without harm. The guard froze, mandible slackening in stunned paralysis. The second guard lunged, but Marek pivoted, using the first's bulk as a shield, his free arm hooking under the attacker's secondary limb in a fluid restraint that pinned without crushing. Breathe through it, he said evenly, as if soothing a patient post-op. No breaks today. Pheromones of confusion flooded the air. The guards' crests dimmed from crimson to amber, their struggles ebbing under the unexpected control. Marek released them in sequence, stepping back with hands raised, expression neutral, all clear, just a misunderstanding. Silence blanketed the atrium. Silithra's antenna stilled, registering the feat. No weapons, no dominance display, yet 2 Var warriors neutralized in heartbeats. Her guards exchanged subtle mandible twitches, respect, bewilderment. Vorun, hovering at her side, emitted a low chitter of disapproval. Marek met her gaze then, offering a slight nod, nothing more. No boast, no demand for praise, just competence, worn like his plain tunic. The public investiture followed in the Hall of Mandates, holograms broadcasting to every Dominion node. Silithra presided from the throne of fused warship hulls, her form draped in silken webs of state. Every gesture a calculus of power. Nobles filled the tiered benches, crests attuned to her every inflection. Marek knelt at the ritual circle's edge, as protocol demanded of lesser allies. Marek Hail of Terra, she intoned, voice amplified to galactic resonance. Your deed merits guest right under the pact. You shall witness our counsels, advise if called, but hold no command. The Var dominion endures by its own strength. Lord Kethrin's voice cut through like a vibroblade. Majesty, this soft skin in our sacred halls. He de-escalates as if we are his charges. Murmurs swelled. Selithra quelled them with a pheromone pulse of authority, her eyes locking on the noble until his crest folded. The treaty binds us, Lord Kethrin. Dismissal serves no one. Internally, a crack formed in her formality. The human's restraint echoed that battlefield mercy, efficient where Var instinct favored overwhelming force. Yet she maintained the distance, dismissing his status to soothe the purists. Marek accepted the laurel of guestweave without flourish, rising humbly. As the assembly dispersed, Vorin approached in the antechamber, his data slate pulsing with fresh text. Majesty, the petition is filed. He extended it. Ancient edicts scrolling in glowing script, prohibitions against non-Var blood in palace environs, purity laws from the founding swarm. Human participation invites ritual taint. The treaty councils threaten withdrawal of their fleets if he remains. Annul the clause, claim fulfillment in his mere arrival. State stability demands it. Selithra's mandibles ground softly, weighing the vectors. Vorun's faction grew bolder, Kethrin's whispers fueling noble unrest. Supply lines teetered. The pact's cooperation was the Dominion's lifeline against encroaching rivals. Exile the human, and Terra's freighters halted, dooming the relays. Yet host him openly, and tradition fractured, inviting coups. Her divine mandate required balance. Strength, through unyielding choice. No annulment, she declared. Clause slashing dismissal across the slate. He stays. Assign palace quarters under guard rotation. Strict supervision. Pheromone wards at every door. He honors the debt I owe. The Dominion honors its word. Let the councils witness our resolve. Vorin's antennae drooped fractionally. A rare tell of surprise, but he bowed without retort. Selithra turned toward the viewport, gazing at the shuttle's fading contrail. The man who had bled for her, a princess then, vulnerable in the void, now beneath her roof. Duty compelled it, but curiosity stirred beneath her regal shell. What other impossibilities did this soft skin carry? In the shadowed halls beyond, Marek Hale followed his escorts, unaware of the subtle shifts in crest angles and pheromone trails marking his passage. Whispers followed. He quelled them without a lash. Selithra sensed the ripple, her resolve hardening. The palace would test him, as it tested all, and she, its empress, would watch closely. Selithra's claws clicked sharply against the obsidian dais as she surveyed the treaty council, her voice cutting through the chamber's humid haze like a blade through silk. The corridors are ratified as drawn. Sign, governors, or explain your world's peril to the fleet. Lord Governor Varak of the Border marches rose, his crest flared in defiance, pheromone vents pulsing challenge. Empress, these paths thread too close to Laris enclaves. We demand phased escorts. Var Marines, not merchant drones. Or no ink falls. Murmurs rippled from the tiered seats, crests angling in wary accord, Vorin's hooded gaze flicking to her from the advisor's perch. The air thickened with unmet obligations, the grand hall's bioluminescent vines casting elongated shadows over holographic maps flickering with contested routes. Selithra's mandibles tightened. Delay here eroded the Dominion's edge against the outer hives. Her eyes, multifaceted and unyielding, swept to the human seated at the periphery. Marek Hale, posture straight amid the sprawl of Var frames, his expression a mask of quiet assessment. Speak your guarantees plainly. She commanded, propriety's veil holding firm even as frustration coiled in her secondary hearts. Before Varak could retort, Marek leaned forward, his voice steady, threading the translation field without hesitation. If I may, Empress, those wagons for the test convoy sit exposed in the lower docks, vulnerable to mishaps. Permit me to verify their seals before we bind words to risk. Silence crashed down, crests snapping upright. Borun's vents hissed softly. A human volunteering for Var logistics? Selithra's primary heart quickened. The treaty bound her to honor him, yet custom recoiled at such presumption. Still, his words echoed the whispers she'd caught, Marek quelling a brawl without violence, his hands steady where blades would have flashed. Granted, she said, the word a calculated fracture in protocol. Proceed, honored guest. Report to council upon return. Merrick inclined his head, rising with fluid economy, and followed the Marine escort without flourish. Selithra watched him vanish through the vaulted arch, the governor's stares burning into her back. From Marek's shadowed vantage in the docking vaults, the supply wagons loomed like slumbering beasts, their hulls etched with Var runes under the glare of cargo lamps. The air hummed with fuel vapors and the distant clank of loaders. He moved methodically, gloved hands tracing seams others deemed sacred, unobtrusive, as if inspecting a field kit after a long patrol. One wagon's undercarriage caught his eye, a faint misalignment in the cargo bed plates, residue powdering the edges like overlooked shrapnel dust. Kneeling, he pried the panel with a multi-tool from his belt, human habit, carried despite palace edicts, and froze. Nestled within, a compact charge, crystalline detonator pulsing faintly, wiring looped in a pattern too precise for hasty sabotage. His fingers danced over the casing, tracing manufacturer glyphs. Keth Loris forge marks, subtle, but unmistakable to anyone who dismantled border traps. Rival house, hungry for leverage. He disarmed it with a steady twist, pulse never spiking, the device inert in his palm as Marines approached. Clear, he said simply, holding it aloft. Planted. Loris' signature. Word raced upward like spilled venom. By the time Marek re-entered the council hall, the chamber seethed. Selithra stood unmoved atop the dais, but her crest betrayed a subtle lift, curiosity sharpening to intrigue. Report, she intoned, gesturing him forward, propriety bending as she ignored Voron's stiffening posture. Marek placed the device on the central plinth, its glow illuminating the governor's paling vents, concealed in Wagon 7, timed for the ratification convoy. Construction matches Loris Heavyworks, microforged relays. Only their foundries produce that weave. Barak's crest drooped fractionally, eyes darting. Baran interjected, voice silken with warning. A bold claim, human. Such relics could be fabricated. Selithra silenced him with a raised claw. Independent sweep of all lines. Dispatch survey drones under Marek's oversight. Protocol yields to evidence. Gasps feathered the air. Advisors never deferred to outsiders. Her gaze locked on Marek, probing. He met it evenly, no boast in his stance, merely the patience of one who'd stitched wounds under fire. The chamber dissolved into ordered chaos. Marines mobilizing, holograms updating with scan feeds. Selithra signaled subtly, her personal guard parting the throng. Honored guest. With me. In the veiled alcove off the hall, away from prying crests, she faced him alone for the first time since his arrival. The space hummed with privacy fields, walls pulsing soft light. Marek stood at ease, device secured in a containment case between them. Explain the detection, she said, mandibles parting slightly, formality cracking into directness. VAR inspectors passed those wagons thrice. He nodded, tracing the wiring hologram with a finger. The powder residue, it's from Loris coolant baths, binds to the crystals unevenly. Humans notice patterns like that. Fieldwork trains the eye. Disarm was straightforward once isolated. No yield variance. Selithra's vents cycled warmer, secondary heart sinking oddly to his rhythm. He spoke without awe of her station, yet his competence hummed like a well-tuned engine. He risked breach without hesitation. Why volunteer? Supply lines fail, people die. Seen it before. Simple, unadorned truth. No demand for praise. A chime pierced the hush. Lord Keithran storming the alcove threshold, flanked by House Loris retainers, their crests ablaze. Empress. This human plants relics to sway the council. Arrest him. Loris honor demands it. The accusation detonated, retainers' pheromones flooding challenge. Voron materialized behind, eyes gleaming with opportunity. Marek didn't flinch, hands open at his sides. Selithra's crest flared fully, a regal storm. You presume much, Kethran. Evidence accuses your house's craft, not the man who uncovered it. Lies. He conjures them from Medic's tricks. Treaty puppetry. Kethran's claw jabbed toward Marek, scandal brewing for the court feeds. Her voice thundered, unyielding. Palace Marines. Detain Loris suspects for questioning. All Forge Masters 3 levels deep. Legal writ invokes the debt clause. No appeasement delays truth. Marines surged forward, clamping crests in ritual hold as Kethran bellowed protest. Selithra turned from the fray, her gaze lingering on Marek. You stand proven this hour. The palace tests deeper yet. He dipped his head, a faint smile ghosting, humble, as if diffusing peril were mere duty. At your command, Empress. As the council reconvened amid detainment echoes, ratification hologram stabilized. Governor signing with hurried claws. Whispers evolved, not mockery now, but he saw what drones missed. Selithra felt the shift in her own pulse, duty's chain lightening into alliance's weight. The man who'd bled for her princess self now guarded her realm's spine. Tradition cracked, but the dominion held stronger. Voron approached post-signing, voice low. A perilous lean majesty. Loris will rally factions. Let them, she replied, eyes on Merrick briefing Marines across the hall. Competence binds tighter than blood oaths. In the vaults later, as scans confirmed 3 more devices, Loris marked. Merrick multitasked seamlessly, directing drones while sketching disarm protocols on a shared slate, adapting VAR syntax mid-flow. A young Marine, crest half-furled in awe, vented. Humans. Endure the scans without fatigue. Your eyes connect forge dust to peril? Patterns there if you look, Marek said, clapping the youth's shoulder. Pack instinct bridging chitin and flesh. The Marine's vents warmed, respect kindling. Selithra observed from a balcony overlook propriety's shell thinning. Political tempests loomed. Kethrin's allies border unrest. But this human's quiet feats reshaped the board. She who ruled by divine line now weighed a medic's worth as equal. The treaty corridors opened, but a deeper path forged between them. Counselor Illis rose from her alcove in the grand chamber, her frilled crest flaring like a blade unsheathed. Empress Selithra, divine heir of the VAR line, the treaty's ink dries but tradition bleeds. I move to rescind the human Marek Hale's honored status and bestow it upon Lord Varen, purest blood of the outer spires. Let no off-world taint sully our rights. Selithra's claws tightened on the armrest of her throne dais, the chamber's vaulted shadows amplifying the fracture lines among her lords. Voron's eyes gleamed with approval from his shadowed perch, while Kethron leaned forward, mandibles clicking in anticipation. The air hummed with factional static, purists versus pragmatists, all eyes on her. Propriety demanded she crush this swiftly, yet the treaty's chains bound her. Merrick's face remained impassive in the guest alcove below, his human frame unyielding amid the VAR splendor. She had watched him from the balcony earlier, recalibrating a drone mid-drill with hands that moved like they knew the machine's pulse. Now this, dead-eyed, Selithra intoned, her voice a silken lash. The debt of blood stands. Hale remains. Murmurs rippled, deepening the council's rift. A formal vote loomed, votes to tally in the coming cycle. Illis bowed stiffly, but her crest stayed rigid. Victory tasted hollow, trust eroded like hull plating under fire. The chamber emptied into the corridor veins of the palace, but Selithra lingered, signaling Merrick with a subtle crest flick. He approached without haste. His steps measured on the iridescent floors. Empress, he said simply, eyes meeting hers without deference or fear. They test the treaty's edge, she replied, guiding him toward the security lifts. My list speaks for many. Prove your place beyond ceremony, or the vote will carve you out. His nod was economical. The drill today, your drone's nav protocols lag on variable winds. I adjusted for cross-shear patterns. It held the drop. She halted the lift mid-descent, frills quivering. A human grasping VAR drone matrices? You presume much. Observe from the sidelines. Fixed what broke. No boast, just fact. The drill hall loomed below, a cavern of humming launch bays where security directorate techs prepped the next patrol simulation. Selithra's oversight here was absolute. VAR protocols forbade outsiders, yet the hook sank deeper. Let him in, or let fractures widen. Show them, she commanded, overriding the bay seals with her signet pulse. Techs froze, crests flattening in shock as a human strode into their sanctum. Director Thaler approached, his armored frills etched with rank glyphs. Empress, this breaches. Observe, Selithra cut in, her tone brooking no fracture. Merrick knelt by a drone cluster, interfaces blooming under his touch. The simulation fired. Holographic storms battered virtual supply pods along a contested route. One pod veered, nav glitching toward catastrophic spin. Marek's fingers danced, recalibrating thrust vectors, layering predictive algorithms from...
Human intuition? Human?
The pod stabilized, threading the gale precisely. Cheers erupted from the techs, crests blooming in reluctant awe. Thaylor leaned in, scanning the logs. Impossible. He inverted the shear compensation without core access. How? Patterned it from your error logs, Marek said, rising dust from his hands. Humans multitask variables, wind, mass, thrust, like breathing. Your systems assume steady state, reality shifts. Selithra felt the shift in the air, propriety's shell cracking under competence's weight. Thaylor's mandibles parted in genuine query. You learned our matrix in hours? Adapted. Your designs are elegant, rigid efficiency. Mine bends. No arrogance, just partnership offered. She signaled the directorate. Include the human in all technical briefings. Protocol bends to necessity. Gasps echoed, but none dared counter her divine word. VAR military access, once bloodlocked, now cracked for him. Thalor bowed, frills dipping lower than protocol. As you decree, Empress. In the echoing hall, Selithra turned to Marek. Present this to the military lords at Eve Council. Earn your foothold. His gaze held steady. If it secures the realm. It did. That eve, amid the lords' armored ranks, Marek stood at the projection dais, not his consort, but specialist. Hollow displays swirled, the drill replay, his fix etched in glowing triumph. Kethrin sneered from his seat, Voron's eyes narrowing. But Lord Varen, Ilas's proposed replacement, tilted his crest in consideration. Supply lines falter on border runs, Marek explained, voice calm as med scans. Your drones excel in vacuum, but atmospheric shear mimics enemy jamming. Recalibrate for dynamic prediction. Ear. He patched the code live, a sim pod threading peril without flaw. Lords murmured, crests flickering from doubt to calculation. Voron interjected, voice-oiled tradition, a medic's parlor trick. What of loyalties? Selithra's frills flared. Results speak. Heed them. Kethrin rose, challenging, or indulge off-world whims while borders burn. The chamber tensed, boat shadows lengthening. Marek met it without flinch. Test it yourselves. Failures cost lives, VAR or human. Silence, then nods. Thaylor vouched. It holds, beyond our road paths. Propriety strained, but Selithra held firm. Marek's foothold rooted. Dawn fractured the palace with alarms, wailing klaxons sealing bulkheads. Selithra surged from her chambers, robes swirling, as guards funneled her to the command nexus. Report. Thaylor materialized, frills taut. Anonymous threat vector. Explosives primed on the exact supply route Hale inspected. Drone scouts confirm. Disarmed by auto-safeties, but deliberate. Palace lockdown engaged. Her blood chilled. The route Marek had touched. Whispers ignited. Vorun's faction, Kethron's spite, or foreign probe scenting weakness. Marek arrived unbidden, summoned by comms, his face etched with focus. Guards bristled, but she waved them down. Your inspection drew this? Or exposed it? He countered. Patterns match covert ops. Minimal trace, max disruption. Someone wants chaos pinned on the outsider. Council fractures reignited. Illis's voice pierced the comm. The human's presence invites peril. Rescind now. Selithra's claws scored the console. Question his loyalties? After his fix saved the sim? No. The threat targeted her rule. Treaty be damned. Yet duty demanded proof. Vorun. Convene the inner circle, she ordered. Marek, you co-lead route security. Under my direct oversight, ceremonial debt becomes operational trust. Thaylor's crest spiked in shock. Empress, a human co-lead. His hand steadied what yours could not. Blend strengths, or fracture falls. Marek nodded, already pulling route schematics. I'll map redundancies. Your drones for scan, my patterns for traps. Endurance run. We drill through lockdown. As lockdown gripped the palace, Selithra watched from the nexus overlook. Lords arrayed below. Marek and Thaylor huddled over hollows, the human's voice weaving human adaptability into VAR precision. Thaylor questioned, learned. Marek listened to alien sensor quirks, innovated. A minor tech, crest low, murmured to another. He juggles code like we juggle breaths. Researched humans last cycle. Fought myths. This, real. Kethrin loomed in the shadows, eyes venomous, but even he paused at the Sim's flawless reroute. Voron paced, tradition warring with results. Silithra felt the pull, a medic's quiet resilience reshaping her court. Political tempests swirled, but this alliance held. Duty cracked into something warmer, partnership forged in crisis. The drill hall demonstration had forced her hand. Now, inner security's gears turned with human oil. In the nexus glow, Marek glanced up, a faint human smile cracking his focus. Route secured, Empress. Together. Her frills eased, just a fraction. So it begins. Lockdown hummed on, but fractures mended in the forge of shared work. The vote loomed. Threats lingered, yet hope anchored. Human capability, VAR strength, entwined. She who ruled by divine line now shared the helm, propriety yielding to proven worth. The realm endured, remade. Empress Silithra's taloned fingers drummed the arm of her throne as the holographic envoy from the Serban Empire materialized in the chamber's dim glow. Your pact with the upstart humans intrigues us, the projection rasped, its scaled face twisting in calculated smile. We offer fleet support against fringe raiders, in exchange for navigational primacy in the Veil Nebula. Vorun's mandibles snapped shut like a vice. Concessions that bleed us dry, Majesty. The Surin sent weakness in our treaty. They probe for fractures while our court simmers. Silithra's crest rippled, a subtle wave of indigo scales betraying the storm beneath her poise. The lockdown had barely lifted, palace corridors still echoing with the vote's narrow affirmation of the alliance. Threats lingered like smoke, yet here was opportunity laced with peril, strategic vulnerability if they yielded too much, isolation if they rebuffed. We hear their words, advisor, but the Dominion bends for no empire's greed. Draft a counter. Shared patrols, no nebula seated. Her voice cut clean, authority unbroken, though inwardly she weighed the banquet ahead, a stage to project unyielding strength amid foreign eyes. The chamber emptied to murmurs of debate. Voron's faction already whispering of purity laws tested by this human-tainted pact. Silithra rose, robes whispering over the obsidian floor, and strode toward the grand hall where rehearsals churned for the diplomatic feast. Protocol demanded flawlessness. One misstep, and Surin envoys would feast on VAR division. In the hall's antechamber, Marek Hale moved through the rehearsing servants like a shadow amid torchlight. No fanfare marked him. The honored guest, treaty-bound consort, merely quiet purpose as he adjusted a side table, eyes scanning the elaborate serving procession. VAR customs blurred in his mind now, months of immersion yielding instincts sharper than any briefing. The way trays balanced on extended limbs, the faint scent of ritual spices masking lesser odors, his hand steadied a silver platter destined for the high dais, the one for her nectar. Beneath a fold of iridescent cloth, amid sculpted fruits, a glint caught him. Not the dull sheen of ceremonial cutlery, but a honed edge, matte black and lethal, wedged to slice upward on lift. Heart steady, Marek palmed it free in one fluid motion, the curved blade no larger than his thumb yet wickedly barbed for VAR flesh. Assassin's tool, concealed for humiliation. Her hand severed mid-reach, blood staining the treaty's symbol before witnesses. He slipped it into his sleeve, gaze flicking to the servants. None noted, their focus wrote on steps and bows. Pattern clicked. This wasn't frenzy, but theater. A staged fall to discredit the alliance. Without pause, he repositioned the cloth seamless, then stepped back as the procession flowed on. The doors parted. Silithra entered, her presence silencing the hall like a solar eclipse. Servants froze in perfect tableau, trays aloft. She paced the rehearsal path, testing proximity, her multifaceted eyes sweeping the setup. Marek stood peripheral, unremarked until her gaze lingered. Treaty demanded his nearness now. Post-lockdown, a ripple in the air. Voron approached from the wings, Lord Kethrin at his flank, the noble spines arched in perpetual challenge. But Silithra halted at the dais tray, nostrils flaring. This placement honors the Surin overture, she commanded, voice resonant. Yet something offends. Marek stepped forward, deference in his posture, but no hesitation. Majesty. He bowed low, then extended his palm, the blade gleaming under light amplifiers. Hidden here, for your reach, removed before risk. Gasps rippled, servants' limbs quivering, Vorun's crest flattening in shock. Kethrin's spines bristled. Silithra's eyes locked on the weapon. Then Marek, her mind racing. Impossible subtlety, spotted amid chaos where VAR vigilance honed by ritual. saw only tradition. Human eyes, alien to their spectra, pierced the veil. How discerned? She asked, tone edged yet curious, propriety holding as she took the blade, turning it in claws. Wrong weight in the drape, Marek replied simply. No boast. Glint mismatched the rest. Humans, we check redundance in field triage. Saves lives. Oren hissed. Planted by intruders? Or tighter access, Silithra cut in, crest steadying to command blue. Review every banquet staffer, lineage, oaths, recent contacts, no exceptions. Her decree echoed, signaling shift. Human reliability no longer ceremonial but proven. Servants bowed deep, scurrying to comply, whispers of awe threading their ranks. A human, unblooded outsider had shielded her divine form where courtiers patrolled blind. She turned to Marek, decision crystallizing. At official functions, seat near the dais. Monitor service flows. Integrate your oversight. The words landed heavy, formal propriety cracking just enough. Personal now, partnership forged in averted crisis. His nod was humble, eyes meeting hers with quiet competence. No demand for credit. Lord Kithrin surged forward, spines fully erect. Staged! This human plant scandal to discredit Var nobility. My own kin served these trays. His voice boomed, turning heads. The incident blooming into public blaze as aides relayed to outer halls. Scandal fodder, treaty consort framing lords, undermining purity. Silithra whirled, her presence towering. Accusation without proof sows greater chaos, Lord Kithrin. Her claws flexed, voice thunder-veiled in silk. You question before inquiry? The blade bears residue. Test it. Pending full review, you are suspended from court duties. Palace stability demands it. The treaty's integrity. More. Kethrin recoiled, mandibles agape, Voron's eyes narrowing in silent calculation. Nobles murmured, but none challenged. Her mandate absolute, prioritizing realm over grievance. Marek stood silent, absorbing the fallout, his mind already mapping staff patterns for the real probe. Who placed it? Tied to CERN probes or internal rot. As rehearsals resumed under tightened guard, Silithra retreated to her antechamber, blade clutched like a talisman. Voron followed, unbidden. Majesty, seating the human closer. Whispers will claim favoritism, weakness. Weakness yields blades at our throat, she countered, multifaceted gaze distant. He saw what ritual blinded us to. CERN watches. Court fractures. His vigilance buys us time. Internally, amazement stirred. Humans dismissed as fragile short-livers, wove endurance into foresight. Marek's casual multitasking, juggling customs and threats, reshaped her calculus. Debt from her princess days when his blood saved her amid wreckage. Now compounded. Equality, not charity. In the hall beyond, Marek coordinated with lead servants, his voice calm amid their flustered limbs. Cross-check trays pairwise, mirror each setup. Anomalies pop faster. They nodded. Tentative respect dawning. The Var youth even mimicked his scan, mandibles clicking approval. Cultural gap bridged in motion, human adaptability sparking their own. Lockdown's fractures mended further, CERN's overture hanging like a blade unsheathed. Yet as Silithra donned her banquet regalia that eve, she envisioned him at her side, not ornament, but sentinel. Appearances fragile, protection forged in unlikely hands. The Dominion endured, Var's strength entwined with human worth, hope's anchor holding firm against the storm. Silithra's palanquin swayed through the thronged avenues of Var Prime's capital, the air thick with the chants of the purity circle. Expel the off-world taint, honor the blood laws. Their voices rose in rhythmic fury, banners whipping like venomous tails above a sea of scaled faces. From her elevated throne she surveyed the demonstrators, thousands strong, orchestrated by Voron's subtle hand, knowing their invocation of ancient inheritance edicts, struck at the treaty's heart, fraying the Dominion's fragile unity. Marek Hale stood at her right, his human frame unyielding beside the honor guard, eyes scanning the rooftops with that quiet vigilance she had come to rely on, however grudgingly. The procession pressed onward, a display of imperial resolve amid the unrest, crystal chimes tolling from the lead floaters. Silithra's claws tightened on her scepter. She would not yield to mob clamor, not when the fleet's admirals watched from orbit, gauging her steel. A sharp crack split the din. Plasma discharge, not ceremonial. The bolt seared toward her dais, iridescent death uncoiling from a shadowed spire. Time fractured. Marek lunged, his body a blur of motion, slamming into her with ferocious precision. He bore her down behind the palanquin's armored lip, the shot grazing his shoulder in a spray of cauterized flesh and singed cloth. Pain lanced through her as they hit the deck, his weight pinning her protectively, but he was already twisting, firing his compact sidearm toward the sniper's nest with unerring calm. The assassin's perch erupted in flames. Marek's return shot had severed a power conduit, collapsing the perch in a cascade of debris. Cheers from her guards mingled with screams from the crowd as enforcers swarmed the site. Selethra shoved upright, her scales prickling with shock, only to see blood blooming across Marek's tunic. Shoulder wound deep, yet he rose with her, scanning for secondary threats. His breath steady despite the pallor, creeping into his face. "Halt the procession!" Her command boomed through the Vox amplifiers, freezing the entire column amid the chaos. "Medical teams to the dais. Now. Secure the honored guest." She gripped Marek's arm as he swayed, her touch firmer than protocol allowed, guiding him to sit while medics descended like silver specters. "All pending actions against Hail Marek are frozen by imperial decree. No faction moves without my seal." The words hung heavy, a public pivot that silenced the nearest chanters. Voron's agents in the crowd exchanged glances, their fervor checked. Even Lord Kethrin, visible on a noble balcony, leaned forward with narrowed eyes. Selethra felt the shift in the air, the reevaluation rippling outward, her own included. This human, this debtor of her life, had just repaid the blood oath in kind, his instincts eclipsing the finest VAR reflexes. She watched a medic probe his wound, Marek gritting his teeth without protest, already murmuring tactical details to the guard captain. Perch angles, wind shear, shooter cast markings glimpsed in the flash. "Empress." The lead medic hissed, her tendrils quivering, the projectile fractured his clavicle. Human bone yields strangely under plasma. "He requires stasis and regrowth." "Grant him the Royal Med Bay," Selethra ordered, her voice a blade sheathed in silk. "Palace ward access, full privileges, no delays." As they lifted him onto the grab stretcher, Marek met her gaze, a faint nod passing between them. Duty acknowledged, something deeper forged in the heat of that intercept. She turned to her advisors, clustered now in urgent huddle. "Escort him directly. I will follow once the perimeter is locked." The capital erupted in aftershocks as the procession dissolved into lockdown. Holoscreens across the Dominion blared the strike. Human shield save sovereign, Purity Circle rally turns to riot. Foreign envoys from the Krell Compact and Thaler Enclave issued blistering denials within the hour, their sanctions threats blooming like toxic spores. Trade embargoes, fleet mobilizations, while domestic factions howled that the treaty itself invited such peril. "The off-worlder endangers the divine line," Voron thundered in a private channel, his image flickering before her in the command yurt. "Ancient laws demand expulsion. This blood proves the gods' warning." Lord Kethron's missive arrived next, couched in honeyed outrage. "My Empress, the attack underscores the peril of foreign entanglements. I stand ready to fortify your throne, through proven VAR bonds." Selethra's tail lashed, cracking the polished floor. The attempt had ignited the powder keg, Purity Circle demonstrations swelling to outright rebellion in outer sectors, admirals whispering of divided loyalties. She strode into the Royal Med Bay an hour later, robes shed for battle harness, the chamber humming with regen fields and diagnostic hums. Marek lay in the central cradle, shoulder encased in luminous gel, his chest rising steadily as nanites knit bone and tissue. A cluster of VAR physicians hovered, their frills flared in disbelief. "Empress," one ventured, "his physiology accelerates adaptation. The wound sealed faster than protocol predicts, and he refused analgesics, insisted on debriefing us mid-procedure." Selethra approached, dismissing all but the chief surgeon. Marek's eyes opened, alert despite the ordeal, that humble pragmatism anchoring her amid the storm. "Perimeter secure?" he asked, voice rough but even. "Reinforcements inbound," she replied, pulling a stool to his side, a breach of formality that drew the surgeon's subtle intake of breath. The sniper bore Krell etchings, half erased. "Your shot confirmed it." He nodded, multitasking even now, one hand sketching threat vectors on a wrist pad, the other flexing experimentally. "Pattern matches the rally's edge. Coordinated. They'll try again before the conclave." Her mandibles clicked softly, a rare admission of reliance. "Then we prepare. But first, She activated her scepter's core seal, projecting the emergency statutes into the bay's hollow dome. By right of Crimson Debt and Survival Imperative, Hail Marek is extended full legal protection under Dominion law. No expulsion, no trial without my adjudication. The surgeon's scales rippled in shock. Empress, Boron's faction, will yield or fracture, she cut in, her tone broking no dissent. Launch the inquiry. Full spectrum on foreign sponsorship. Tap the shadow archives. Cross-reference purity funding trails. Choosing security over appeasement, she watched the orders cascade, fleet probes dispatched, enforcer sweeps igniting across the grid. Voron's channel chimed protest, but she silenced it, her focus narrowing to the man before her. Marek shifted, wincing minutely, yet his pattern recognition wove threads she had overlooked, the sniper's perch aligned with Catherine's overlook. Not direct, but line of sight for signals. Salithra's gaze sharpened, intrigue yielding to a personal tether. You see what my court misses. Not ornament, but sentinel. His endurance mocking VAR fatigue thresholds, his adaptability turning crisis to clarity. The surgeons murmured among themselves, frills betraying awe at this human's uncomplaining resilience, his casual multitasking of pain and analysis. As the bay's lights dimmed to regen cycle, she lingered, propriety's facade cracking under the weight of binding truth. Duty had snapped into partnership. The Dominion's storm raged, but here, entwined strengths held, hope's anchor, forged in blood and quiet competence, deepened against the gathering tempests. Salithra's claws tightened on the bay's viewport as the first CERN blockade signatures flared across the orbital feeds. Hulking dreadnoughts slicing supply lanes like ritual blades. Alarms pierced the regen hum, red pulses syncing with her quickening hearts, and Voron's voice crackled through her implant. Empress, the CERN strike now, Purity Circle riots ignite on 3 core worlds. Our granaries starve within cycles. She straightened, scales rippling with imperial steel, the quiet anchor of Marek's gaze from moments before now a distant warmth against the gale. She strode into the command nexus, robes swirling like storm clouds, courtiers parting in hushed deference. Hollow displays bloomed chaotic, CERN pickets enforcing a noose around VAR trade spines, agitator broadcasts, Purity Circle fanatics, swelling with promises of divine reclamation, their rhetoric laced with off-world funding traces. Borun awaited at the war table, his frilled crest flared in accusation, flanked by generals whose mandibles clicked dissent. This is no coincidence, Majesty, he intoned, voice of velvet blade. The human taint invites such predation. Expel Hail. Reaffirm our bloodlines. Silence breeds starvation, advisor. Salithra's command cut like cryosteel, her gaze sweeping the chamber. Where was Marek? She signaled him through the treaty link, a private pulse, nexus, now. Footfalls echoed, his, steady, unhurried amid the frenzy. He entered without flourish, tunic still bearing bay residue, eyes scanning holos with that infuriating human calm, as if decoding a field dressing rather than galactic siege. Marek Hale, she said formally, propriety's mask firm even as her tail betrayed a subtle coil toward him. Report. He nodded once, humble deference masking the quiet fire she'd glimpsed in the bay, and interfaced his portable slate with the central array. Data streams cascaded, VAR ciphers parting like mist under his touch. Intercepted these from the agitator's bursts last cycle, he said, voice even, no boast. CERN encryption layered under civilian noise, standard for deniability. But patterns match their deep space probes. Frequency hops tied to blockade vectors. Here's the key. A web unraveled on the central hollow. Agent networks exposed, CERN paymasters named, drop coordinates pinpointed on riot worlds. Gasps rippled. A general's spines quivered. Humans juggled wounds and watches in the dirt. Marek had once explained offhand. This was merely extending that rhythm to stars. Voron's crest flattened fractionally. Impossible. Our cryptors labored shifts, shifted patterns. Marek interjected mildly, multitasking feeds without pause, cross-referencing economic ledgers mid-sentence. CERN rotates every 47.2 minutes, but their agitator pings lag by 3.7. Cultural tick from their hive cycles. Links the funding to these 3 cells. He traced a surgical strike. Infiltrate. Expose transmissions live. Trace back to CERN command ships. Sever the purse strings. Watch the blockade falter without a shot. The generals erupted, mandibles snapping. A human scheme. We strike the line head-on. Bar way. Lord Keithron, looming from the shadows, sneered through his comms feed. This upstart medic plots our humiliation. Selithra's vision narrowed, strength coiling unyielding. She'd been princess then, blood pooling from a shrapnel kiss, his veins threading life into hers without demand. Debt bound her. Now crisis forged choice. Enough! Her voice thundered, silencing the nexus. Hale's decode pierces what your rote arrays missed. Creativity in cipher as in vain. We adapt. Or wither. She met Marek's eyes, a flicker of shared gravity passing unspoken. The operation proceeds. Your competence stands equal to any VAR blade. Murmurs crested like a tide, but she moved to the war table's apex, gesturing Marek beside her. Not behind, not apart. He took position without comment, humble as ever, though his fingers danced across controls, syncing human intuition with VAR arrays. She placed her signet beside his thumbprint on the order slate, claws and flesh sealing joint command. The hollow pulsed approval broadcasting their united silhouette to every fleet node. Propriety cracked audibly. Courtier's scales shivered, but her posture radiated dominion unbroken, intrigue yielding to alliance's edge. As strike teams launched under their dual sigils, the nexus thrummed with reluctant efficiency. Marek multitasked flawlessly, briefing infiltrators in VAR dialect he'd mastered in weeks, adapting to their pheromone cues with a nod here, a pattern tweak there. Selithra watched from her vantage, admiration stirring beneath regal poise, his endurance unflagging through the night cycle. Optimism threading his corrections. We've got this. Their road can't match the pivot. Generals grudgingly noted it, spines easing as feeds confirmed agent takedowns. Then the council chamber feed intruded, urgent glyph flashing. Warren's faction had seized the moment. Jurity Circle elders, Kethron at their fore, declaiming her corruption by human touch. Depose the tainted heir. Ancient law forbids lesser blood at rule's heart. Riots swelled anew, regime teetering as CERN ships tightened the noose. Selithra's hearts hammered, but resolve armored her. She activated the Imperial Broadcast Array, Nexus hollows linking to every VAR world, Marek at her shoulder. People of the Dominion, she declared, voice resonant as ancestral thunder, scales agleam under lights. The CERN blockade chokes our veins, agitators fracture our spines, all backed by off-world gold. But see, she unveiled the operation feeds live. Agents exposed, CERN captains scrambling as traces beamed galaxy-wide. My consort and co-regent Marek Hale decodes their shadow. Together, we strike true. Council gasped through the link. Catherine's face twisted. Consort? Blasphemy. Truth. Her decree sealed it. Treaty oath evolving into mandate. He saved this divine line once with humble blood. Now he safeguards our realm with equal mind. Accept or join the CERN puppets. Strike teams ignited beacons, CERN funding severed, agitators crumbling, as broadcasts flipped to Dominion banners. Blockade ships peeled away, captains citing diplomatic fallout, their empire's deniability shattered. Vorun's crest bowed first, then the council. Kethron's glare promising future barbs, but yielding under proof's weight. Cheers erupted across feeds, riots quelled by the tide of vindication. Selithra turned to Marek as the nexus quieted, her claw brushing his hand in shadowed propriety, a personal anchor amid political triumph. You saw the weave where fleets saw knots, she murmured, formality softening to warmth. Equal indeed. He smiled faintly, humble weariness in his eyes, no trace of arrogance. Just connecting dots, Majesty. Your steel made the blade. Their strengths entwined deeper, duty's chains remade into partnerships forge. The Dominion endured, reshaped by quiet human fire and VAR resolve, tradition bending, not breaking, to survival's truth. In the afterglow, as council acceptances flooded in, Selithra felt the shift. Courtier's deference now laced with alien wonder at this human's unassuming gifts. Vorun approached, voice grudging respect, his patterns unprecedented.
We research human ciphers at dawn. Marek merely nodded, already plotting supply reroutes, his resilience a beacon.
She was born to rule, and learned that true power was finding an equal.